baby points at a bird. You offer the bird. The baby gets annoyed. It did not want the bird. It wanted you to look at the bird and to know that you were looking together. Before it can name the world, it is already trying to synchronize two minds. Me, you, that. Humans do this so early and so casually that pointing looks like a reflex. It is not. Great apes have rich, gestural lives. Dogs can become excellent readers of a human point, and one wild chimpanzee with a leaf has made the border stranger than scientists expected. So how can researchers know what a speechless baby means? Why does a finger appear before useful speech? And did this tiny gesture help build the platform beneath teaching, language, and culture? Or are we pointing at ourselves and declaring victory too soon? Reaching is easy to understand. The object is there. The hand wants it here. A point can begin the same way, but the mature gesture is physically odd. The hand does not grab the thing. It stops in empty air. For a point to work, the sender must select a target, direct another person toward it, and usually monitor whether that person has followed. The message is not located in the finger. It lives in the triangle. Developmental researchers call this triadic attention, two individuals coordinating around a third thing. Before that, an infant can have face-to-face exchanges with a caregiver or stare at an object alone. Pointing helps join those separate worlds. When the adult follows the line and looks back, both now have more than private attention. Each has evidence that the other is attending too. That shared patch becomes common ground. Not merely, there is a berry, but we are attending to this berry together. The index finger is common, not the only possible form. People point with hands, lips, head, and gaze, and cultures shape when direct pointing is polite. The deeper behavior is directing another mind toward a referent. That is the first trap in our title. The finger is visible. The real event is social. A point can do at least three importantly different jobs. First, an imperative point. Give me that biscuit. The adult is recruited as a tool. The goal is the object or action. Second, an informative or helpful point. Your keys are there. The baby may not gain the object at all. The gesture supplies information another person needs. Third, a declarative point. Look at the moon. Nothing changes hands. The apparent reward is a shared reaction. These categories are not labels a baby announces. Researchers infer motives from context, persistence, gaze, and response. A child might point at a toy because it wants the toy, wants the adult to name it, wants help using it, or simply finds it magnificent. The declarative case is the strange one. An animal requesting food is easy to fit inside survival. An infant spending energy to make another individual notice a distant airplane seems almost frivolous. Yet that frivolous sharing is everywhere around the first birthday. Human infants show, give, and point to recruit attention before they can explain why. The question is whether the shared attention is really the goal, or whether adults are reading a sophisticated story into an outstretched hand. You cannot solve this by asking the witness. You solve it by changing the response. In experimental versions of this problem, an infant points toward an event or object, and an adult responds in different ways. The adult can establish joint attention, attend to the wrong place, ignore the gesture, or notice the object without giving the expected social response. Researchers then watch what the infant does next. Does it repeat the point? Alternate its gaze? Vocalize? Become dissatisfied? Stop once the adult's attention appears aligned. Persistence matters. If the baby merely wanted to discharge an arm movement, the adult's response should not matter much. If the gesture was communicative, a wrong response is a failed message. Repetition becomes repair. Across studies reviewed by Michael Tomasello, Melinda Carpenter, and Ulf Liskowski, 12-month-olds behaved as though their points were trying to alter an adult's attention, knowledge, or emotional engagement. that supports a rich interpretation of prelinguistic communication. Supports is the important word. Behavior does not give us a direct recording of a baby's private experience. Experimental designs narrow the explanations. They do not turn a one-year-old into a philosopher delivering a theory of shared intentionality. Joint attention is also not one switch. Following a gaze, checking another person's face, coordinating a goal, and knowing what has been shared may develop on different schedules. A recent review warns against compressing all of that into one magic human ability. The triangle is built piece by piece. Pointing makes the construction visible. Human infants typically begin producing canonical index finger points around the time of their first birthday, some earlier, some later. Showing and holding objects out can appear on the road toward it. Spoken language is beginning too, but a useful vocabulary takes longer. Pointing wins the race because it solves a simpler problem. A word requires a shared symbol. Bird works only if speaker and listener already know what that sound conventionally means. A point can use the visible world as part of the message. Without a referent, a new word is dangerously vague. Does the sound mean bird, wing, flying, black, branch, or lookout? A finger collapses the search space. Caregivers naturally respond to infant attention. A baby points. An adult looks. The adult names, explains, warns, laughs, or retrieves. The infant has selected the lesson before it can request the lesson in words. The adult is not a passive decoder. Parents point too. Their declarative points can model how the gesture works and create word-learning moments. A study of parent pointing found that declarative use was associated with infants' early word learning and with infants beginning to point. The direction of cause is difficult to isolate because responsive adults and socially engaged infants influence one another continuously. That feedback loop matters more than a heroic finger. The baby changes the adult's behavior. The adult changes the baby's opportunities. Each successful exchange makes the next exchange easier. Communication develops inside the relationship. This makes pointing a powerful learning context, but not a language engine by itself. A 2022 meta-analysis combined 25 studies and 77 effect sizes. The overall relationship between infant pointing and language was significant but small, a correlation of 0.20. Pointing predicts something. It does not write a child's future. The review found the unique contribution may be less robust than older summaries suggested, and it highlighted how culturally narrow much of the evidence remains. Human infants often means the infants researchers could recruit near a particular university. Caregiver routines, gesture conventions, and expectations about direct attention vary across communities. A developmental pattern can be widespread without every culture producing the same frequency, hand shape, or laboratory response. The map of evidence is not the map of humanity. The honest claim is better anyway. Pointing is not a magic cause of language. It is a window into the social machinery language will use. Comparisons with animals are irresistible and easy to ruin. Domestic dogs can be remarkably sensitive to human pointing. In one large 2021 study, young puppies with little human experience already showed social attention and skill in cooperative communication tasks, and genetic differences explained a substantial share of variation in that sample. That does not mean a dog has a tiny human theory of mind. A point-following task can be solved through attention, learned expectations, and domesticated sensitivity to us. It does mean evolution and development can build excellent readers of another species' signals. Great apes are not gesture poor. Chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans use flexible repertoires for travel, play, grooming, sex, food, and conflict. Captive apes also learn to point toward things they want, especially in interactions with humans. In fact, barriers can help create the conditions for pointing. If an ape can reach food, it reaches. If a human controls food beyond reach, recruiting that human becomes useful. This is why comparisons must ask what each subject has learned about the strange cooperative rules of the test room. So chimps cannot point is false. The sharper contrast concerns how often, how early, and for what motive pointing appears. Human infants routinely point declaratively to share interest. Referential gestures among wild great apes are rarer and have usually been interpreted as requests: groom here, move there, give that. Even that contrast depends on opportunity. A captive ape lives in a world where humans control food and tools behind barriers. Pointing at a desired item becomes useful. A wild ape does not sit across a laboratory table waiting for a cup choice. Rearing and task design matter. The useful comparison is not who passes. It is what the gesture does in each social ecology. Then Fiona held up a leaf. Fiona is an adult female chimpanzee observed in Uganda's Kibale forest. She was sitting beside her mother, Sutherland, grooming a leaf, manipulating and inspecting it closely. Sutherland was not watching. Fiona extended the leaf toward her mother. When the first movement did not produce a clear response, she repositioned it. Sutherland turned her head and eyes toward the leaf. Fiona then withdrew it and continued leaf grooming. She did not hand over food. The leaf species was not part of the chimpanzee's known diet at that site. The interaction did not begin play or a new grooming session. Her apparent goal was satisfied when her mother looked. The researchers examined 84 other leaf grooming events to test alternatives. Shared visual attention was common when another chimp was positioned to see. Observers did not take or eat the leaves. New play or grooming did not reliably follow. This is not permission to announce that the case is closed. The authors stress the problem. Communicative intention is difficult to establish in a non-linguistic animal, especially from one observation. They call Fiona's gesture promising and ask for more cases from more individuals. But one good exception can destroy one bad absolute. If Fiona was showing the leaf simply to align attention, then the difference between humans and chimpanzees may be quantitative rather than a wall, common and developmentally central in us, rare and restricted in them. That is more interesting than another trophy for human uniqueness. Evolution usually edits old capacities. It rarely manufactures a mental universe from nothing. When did our ancestors begin pointing like this? We do not know. Gestures do not fossilize. A stone flake can survive for millions of years. A coordinated glance disappears the instant it succeeds. We can compare living species, study infant development, and build evolutionary models, but we cannot dig up the first declarative point. One influential account links human pointing to unusually collaborative activity. When partners depend on one another, it becomes valuable not only to demand but to inform. Prey went there. The tool is behind you. I need you on that side. Repeated cooperation can favor individuals motivated to share goals, attention, and information. Pointing then becomes more than a command. It becomes an invitation into common ground. That is a theory supported by developmental and comparative patterns, not a narrated scene from prehistory. We do not know that one hunting strategy invented pointing. We do not know that gesture marched neatly into speech. We do know the modern systems fit together. Infants point before fluent speech. Adults treat points as communicative. Shared attention helps select reference. Human cooperation rewards useful information. Language then inherits a social platform that is already running. Words do not create the triangle. They make the triangle portable. A point is trapped in the present. It needs a visible direction and usually a visible target. Language can refer to yesterday's berry, tomorrow's hunt, and an animal nobody in the room has seen. But language still needs shared reference. Every pronoun, map label, classroom diagram, and shouted warning assumes speaker and listener can coordinate what the sign is about. Teaching uses the same geometry. Look here, hold this part, strike that edge. The gesture does not contain the whole skill, but it directs attention to the step that matters. Attention is a limited resource. Two people can stand beside the same demonstration and extract different information. A point lets the teacher compress the lesson. This edge, not the whole stone. This track, not the whole forest. It reduces the chance that a learner copies the movement while missing the causal detail. Across generations, those moments can support cumulative culture, the human ability to preserve and improve practices beyond what one individual could invent alone. Calling pointing the cause of civilization would be theater. Calling shared attention, part of the infrastructure, is defensible. Infrastructure is not glamorous. It is valuable because everything else quietly assumes it. There is a cost to this shared world, too. A creature exquisitely tuned to other minds can be distracted by them, anxious about them, and vulnerable to false signals. The same triangle that lets a parent teach bird lets a crowd coordinate around a rumor. Joint attention does not guarantee truth. It guarantees alignment. Humans did not merely become good at seeing, we became good at making other people see what we selected. That power scales from a warning finger to a road sign, an advert, a flag, and a screen full of arrows. It also creates a social obligation. A point silently asks for a response. Ignore a stranger indicating smoke and you may miss danger. Follow a manipulator pointing at an enemy and you may join a disaster. Shared attention is morally neutral. Its value depends on what enters the shared space and why. By now, this story is begging to become mythology. Let us refuse. A pointing baby is not proof of adult mind reading. It is evidence of early sensitivity to attention, response, and shared activity. A late or unusual pointing pattern is not a diagnosis. Development varies and clinical questions belong with qualified professionals, not a YouTube checklist. Chimpanzees can point, especially in human environments. Dogs can follow points without becoming furry toddlers. Infant pointing predicts later language modestly, not fatefully. And no fossil tells us this was humanity's first invention. The careful version still lands hard. Before most humans can speak, they produce a flexible gesture that can request, inform, and share. They monitor another person's response. Adults answer by aligning attention and often supplying language. The behavior is unusually prominent in our species and connected to the cooperative lives humans lead. Fiona prevents us from drawing the boundary with a ruler. The human difference may be that a rare possibility in another ape became an ordinary developmental expectation in us. That is how evolution often changes a world. Not by creating a brand new component, but by changing its frequency, motive, and place in development until every child expects another mind to join the view. Why do human babies point before they can speak? Because speech needs a shared target before a shared symbol can do any work. A finger uses the visible world to establish that target. A point does not prove language began with a finger. It proves that before words can work, two people must first agree on what the words are about. The first message is not bird, it is join me here. Everything after that gets to travel farther. If you are new here, this channel follows the small animal behaviors that became large human systems, without pretending every hypothesis is a fact. Subscribe for the next field note, and watch how tools became different once humans started teaching, copying, and improving them together. Then tell me below, what is the first thing you remember teaching someone when neither of you had the right word for it?